Hey everybody, welcome back to Lots of Stories. I'm here with one of my favorite storytellers, Rachel Cusumano.
Hi guys.
We're going to tell you some stories today. First, I'll just tell you a little bit about Rachel and how we met through a storytelling class at Magnet Theater. It was a great class. I recommend looking it up and seeing if it's your thing.
Definitely, even if you're completely new to it, it was a great time.
Yeah, it was really amazing because it's a small group of people and I feel like you get to know each other really well within 6 weeks.
Yeah, I think our entire class wished it didn't end.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why we keep doing other storytelling things, and so we can see each other again, you know. So with that, we're going to start telling some stories.
Awesome.
Okay, we're going to mix it up a little bit today, and I'm going to pick words for Rachel's story. So our first word is going to be pitch. P-I-T-C-H. And your second word is going to be finish. F-I-N-I-S-H. Okay, now pick a section.
Okay. Yep, I'll just go with that one.
This big squiggle.
Yep, the little big squiggle.
Okay, a story about risk.
Okay, all right.
All right. So pitch, finish, risk. It can be fiction, nonfiction, whatever you like.
Okay.
All right, we'll be right back with the story.
So when I first heard the word pitch, I thought of it in a few different ways. One, kind of like to pitch a ball, something I have terrible aim, was never good at. Another one was the typical business pitch. You know, you come in, you try to get a new client, position, something like that. And I thought of it in the kind of formal pitch way. You know, you have a slideshow presentation, you have your clients at the board table, and then they say yes or no. And thinking about it a little bit more, sometimes pitches aren't that clearly defined. Sometimes you are pitching for yourself, in a way just advocating for yourself and pitching that I want this because I deserve it, because I want it, because I think I can make a difference. There was one time I was pitching for myself in a particular job. And, you know, all the parameters were perfect. I was well qualified to make a lateral transition in this job I wanted. The department, they all wanted me to come on board. I worked well with my coworkers in that department. And everything was set. But sometimes, you know, pitches don't go according to plan. And I think that's an important life lesson that you learn along the way. And I made this pitch, and I was told that I got the pitch. And then the next day, by forces outside of my own, politics, someone trying to make their own name, someone else trying to make their own pitch, intervened. I didn't get the job, and I was told that I was basically on the line, meaning they wanted me out. The person wanted my job. They didn't want me there anymore. And, you know, I could have tried to play the moving target game. I could have tried to, you know, meet the moving KPIs that all of a sudden would just so conveniently change. But I was mad. I worked for that pitch. I executed that pitch. And I thought I was going to get it. He took my pitch. So, knowing that, you know, my head was on the line anyways, I emailed our CEO. I explained to him that it wasn't quite fair. You know, he saw in black and white it wasn't quite fair, but this other guy making the pitch happened to be, you know, one of his own. So, although he played diplomat, he got HR involved, it was clear that the writing was still on the wall. But I made it known I went out fighting. And sometimes, you know, the pitch that you thought you wanted isn't something that you should have. You can do so much better. So I ended up getting fired from my first job ever. And it was scary, it was hard, but I know that I did everything within my power to fight for myself, to stand up for myself. And that was the pitch I was giving. And it turned out, I can say this because I'm over about 2 years away from that pitch, I moved on to a much more well-suited pitch for me, one that I wasn't trying to force, I wasn't trying to squeeze into. It was a pitch that felt right. I moved on to my next interview, and it happened to be an industry that I cared about, the hospitality industry, and matching the skills I learned along the way at the previous job. And there were certain skill sets like Excel, Google Analytics, SQL, I was a little rusty on, but once again, I had to define my pitch, I had to fight for my pitch, and I worked for that pitch. I learned these skill sets, and I went into the next interview with a little bit more confidence, because I knew I was fighting for what I deserved. I wasn't going to settle for someone treating me less than I deserved, even at a job, because they wanted to define my pitch for me. And 2 years later, the pitch that I executed, I won for this new job, has been fitting very well. And I'm so happy I didn't get the pitch that I thought I wanted. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel, for telling us that story. I know sometimes I think that telling personal stories, especially work stories, seem really hard to me. Like, I'm always really impressed with people who can open up about that. I feel like some of the losses or difficulties associated with work, like, really just take such a hard toll on the ego that, you know, it can be hard. But I've had a similar experience where sometimes the things that I really thought I wanted may not have been the best things for me. And it's really frustrating.
Yeah.
You know?
At the time, it's like, I'm sure there's like, you know, everything happens for a reason, but like, what's the reason? What's happening?
And it's also like, why did I have to be crushed in order for me to get what's better for me? Like, why couldn't it just have been nice? I don't know. Why couldn't I have wanted the right thing in the first place?
Right,
you know?
yeah. Like, everything worked out, but couldn't it just be, like, you know how they say success, like, it's not linear, it's not a straight line, it's like that little doodle thing that goes down and up.
Yep, the spiral. It's always the spiral. All right, well, now I'm gonna try to come up with the story, so help me out, please, Rachel.
All right, the first one I'm gonna go with is camera.
Okay.
A-M-E-R-A. And then the next one I'm gonna go to is country.
Okay.
C-O-U-N-T-R-Y.
All right. I'm going to go with this flower.
Okay. Something from history. Fiction, nonfiction.
Okay. All right.
That seems like a fun prompt.
Yeah. Fun prompt. Camera, country, history. All right, I'm going to think about it. We'll be right back. I love television and movies, and I have pretty much always loved television and movies. I do not remember a time in my life really before knowing about television and movies. They're the best. And as someone who grew up in Queens, one thing that I loved learning somewhere along the way was that, you know, you think that Hollywood is like where all of movies in this country developed. But in fact, Queens was one of the biggest sites of movie development in this country, particularly Astoria, Queens. I didn't grow up in Astoria, but I did grow up in its borough. And growing up, we would go sometimes to the Museum of the Moving Image. Now, that museum has been radically redone in the past several years. It's amazing. You walk in, it's like a spaceship. It's like nothing I can't even find the words. It's magnificent. Their screening room is amazing. It has this curtain that I'm completely in love with. And it's an incredible museum, but one of the coolest things about it is its main exhibit, when you go upstairs, and they had this exhibit even before they redid it, was showing the way moving images work, the way a camera works, the way it's like a still animation, that it's like when you're a kid and you make a flip book, that a camera is basically like a flip book. Each page of it is a different frame, and as you flip through it, there's an illusion of movement because each still image is moving. So this was something that I learned at some point as a kid growing up in Queens, was that there was like early studios were built in Astoria, and the industry really developed on both sides of the country. At the same time, in upstate New York, in Rochester, I believe is where where a lot of cameras were developed. Eastman Kodak is in Rochester. And I think it's just really cool that as a New Yorker, something that you're raised to think of as just one coast, the film industry really was happening on both sides of the country at the same time. When I was in college and I studied film, I learned a little bit more of this, but it was more contemporary. I learned more about what was going on in the film industry, like in the 60s, 70s, and after. And I was really lucky to take a class in college on the films of Martin Scorsese. And seeing New York through his camera was incredible for me, having grown up here, going to school here, seeing the streets of the city that I love just being reflected back, knowing that much of the industry was made here, that I didn't have to move to LA if I wanted to have a life where I learned more about film and television. That was really exciting. I will also say on a personal note that I took about a 15 to 20 year hiatus of my pursuit of film and television, and only in the past year, in 2019, did I get back to figuring out how I was going to do something with it. But I still think it's really cool that a kid who grew up in Queens, where a lot of the film industry grew up too, is getting to use this equipment in Manhattan now, and getting to play with cameras. Thanks. So that's the show for today. Thanks for listening to my story.
Yeah, and thank you for listening to mine as well.
Really enjoy using the cameras here. I like to say this once in a while, but we're at M&N Studios in Manhattan, and they have an amazing program where you get to learn how to use the equipment, and as long as you help crew for other people and use it regularly enough, you get to make a show. So it's really fun, and it's been great to be with you on the show today, Rachel.
Yeah, it's been amazing. This equipment's wonderful, seeing all of this, being on the show, practicing some storytelling.
Yeah, always trying to practice our storytelling here. It's also kind of fun because our storytelling class just has decided, or the graduates of our storytelling class, we've decided to try to keep our little group going and get together about once a month to tell stories. So I'm really looking forward to more of those with you too.
Yeah.
All right, well, thanks for being here, and check us back for more stories later on.